My son said, "Mom, my wife would be upset if you moved in with us." That night, I thought it was time to end everything. But then, an unexpected letter changed my fate forever. My name is Susan Baker, and I'm 68 years old. This is the story of how I nearly took my own life while living in America and how I found reasons to keep on living. Every time I say my name out loud, it feels distant, as if it belongs to someone else. Perhaps it's because I've always lived for someone else. In 2005, my husband passed away. I remember that morning vividly. His last words were, "I'll be back soon," as he reached for his mug. It was a sudden farewell, leaving behind nearly $140,000 in debt. I was left in the dark about why or how it had been spent. But there was no time for tears. At that point, my son, Michael, was in middle school. The thought of his exams, high school, college, just thinking about it suffocated me. I decided to work at a nearby farm. Each morning at 4, I'd wake up, pack my lunch, and slip on my boots to head to the fields. I walked the frost-covered ground every day on the same path, carrying the heavy baskets. I often questioned, what was my life supposed to be? Yet each time, I saw Michael's peaceful, sleeping face in my mind. I just want to give this boy a decent life. That desire alone propelled me forward in silence. Though my earnings were minuscule, I managed to steadily pay off our debts and send Michael to a private university. By the time I paid his tuition, my bank account was nearly empty, but I was overjoyed. When he said, "Thank you," just once, it felt like 19 years of hard work had been repaid. Even after that, my life continued in the same manner, living modestly in an affordable apartment in the suburbs outside New York, always mindful not to inconvenience anyone. Then, in 2024, one morning, I slipped in a kitchen and fell hard. Immobilized by sharp pain, I was rushed to the hospital. The diagnosis was a fractured femur. The doctor, in a gentle tone, mentioned, "Post-surgery, you'll need someone to stay with you. Do you have family?" I paused before replying. "I have one son." My voice sounded foreign, even to me. With trembling fingers, I took out my smartphone and dialed his number, a number I'd called countless times, yet it seemed a universe away now. After the dial tone, I heard his voice. "What's up, Mom? It's late." I tried to sound cheerful. "Sorry, I'm in the hospital. I broke my leg. Would you mind being here for a bit? The doctor said I need some support." I sensed a slight heaviness in the silence that followed on his end. But deep down, I had hope. I believed, no matter how busy he was, that he'd say, "Of course, I'll be right there." His response would come later. Yet, until that moment, I clung to a mother's hope. The one thing I held on to, after a lifetime with my head hung low, was the pride in believing I was a good mother. However, I would soon learn just how fragile that belief was. The days in the hospital were like a waking dream, not really sleeping, not fully awake. The pain in my leg was bearable, but the guilt of being a burden weighed on my heart. The doctors and nurses treated me kindly. When asked, "Have you contacted your son?" I smiled sheepishly. "Yes, I think he'll come, though he's a busy guy." 3 days after that call, the door of my hospital room opened softly, and Michael peeked in. "Mom, I'm here." It had been a long time since I'd seen his face, but there was something tense about his expression, and his smile seemed forced, like it wasn't quite reaching his eyes. Suppressing the joy I felt inside, I simply said, "Thanks for coming all this way. It's really appreciated." My son, Michael, took a seat, and for a while there was silence between us. The only sounds in the hospital room were the steady beeping of the heart monitor and the drip of the IV. Eventually, he took a deep breath and spoke softly, almost hesitantly. "Mom, things at home are a bit complicated right now." I nodded in understanding, already predicting the direction of the conversation. Probably, or rather definitely, it was going to lead to a discussion about how we couldn't live together. "Well, you see, my wife, she's not been feeling well lately. She's under a lot of stress." "Yeah, I understand." "Don't worry about it, it's okay," I responded, trying to keep my tone calm and reassuring. But right then, his shoulders slumped a little, as if he'd made up his mind to say something final. And, the house is kind of cramped. Also, Mom, you've been leaving the lights and TV on again, haven't you? My wife. She really notices these things. Ah, there it was. I murmured to myself inwardly. It hit me that I had become difficult to deal with now. He then brought out an envelope from his bag. This should cover the costs for a while. I already looked into it. It's a highly recommended place. The staff is polite, and the facilities are top-notch, Mom. I think you'll be very comfortable there. The envelope he placed on the table was thick. A number, about 350, floated to my mind, and my throat went dry on its own. I slowly closed my eyes. Words failed me. Perhaps, deep down, I didn't want to say anything. Sensing my hesitation, Michael hurried to explain further. It's not about kicking you out, okay? I visited the place, made sure it was up to my standards. I'll come visit, of course. Finally, I managed to muster a smile and squeeze out some words. Thank you for thinking this through so thoroughly, it means a lot. When I heard myself say those words, I felt a strange sensation like I had become a stranger to myself. A single hope I had, that we could live together, seemed to have transformed into. That envelope with 350 inside it? Perhaps it was me who was outdated. This is a time of independence, boundaries, privacy. Maybe the meaning of family isn't what it used to be. Yet I remember back when Michael was little, the nights he'd cry and wake up, and I'd soothe him, gently patting his small back, whispering, "It's okay." The feverish night when I changed ice packs to help him sleep, spending sleepless nights by his side. Where did those memories go? Watching him walk out of the hospital room, I suddenly thought, surely this is just a dream. After a short nap, I'll wake up again, and he'll say, "Mom, come back home?" That kind of dream. But reality wasn't so kind. The sound of the door closing echoed heavily, as if the world was shutting me out of the room. I slowly picked up the envelope. Despite its weight, my heart felt empty, and at the very core of my being, only one thought lingered. So I'm no longer a mom. I've become a care recipient now. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lying on my hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, I replayed my life in my mind as if rewinding an old tape. But no matter how much I tried to recall different memories, that one sentence wouldn't stop ringing in my ears. "Mom, the house is a bit cramped." That night, amidst the rhythmic sound of the IV, my heart raged like a storm in the quiet of the hospital room. When I close my eyes, the words from earlier in the day echo in my mind. "Mom, the house is a bit cramped." And then, on the desk, I noticed the envelope left behind. Inside it was about 350. My son had meant for this gesture to be an act of consideration. But to me, it felt like a statement of finality. I slowly sat up, being careful not to jostle myself too much, and did not bother to call the nurse using the button by my bed. I opened the small locker next to me. Inside, there was a small safe that had been with me for years, something I held dearly. The nurses had agreed to keep it for me while I stayed here. The safe contained my bank book, which I had diligently filled with savings over 30 years, and a small envelope that held the first drawing Michael ever made. I picked up the bank book and gently flipped through the pages. The numbers reflected my life's journey. The countless early mornings spent working in the fields, cleaning jobs on weekends, and cherishing each tremor in my hands during chilly winters and sweltering summers. All those years wishing, with this money, Michael will go to college. He will walk across that stage wearing a gown. But then, Michael now says there's no room for me in his life. I put the bank book down softly on the bed, took a letter-writing pad and pen from the drawer, and began to write with trembling hands. To Michael, tonight, Mom thinks it's time to end this life. I just don't want to be a burden anymore. I've always believed that as long as you're happy, that's all that matters. But now, my heart is empty. As I wrote, tears streamed down my face, and the ink smeared on the paper felt like an extension of my emotions. I reached for the medicine bag, arranging the prescribed sleeping pills one by one. I didn't know how many would reduce me to a deep sleep, but truthfully, I no longer cared. By my pillow, I placed the bank book, the letter, and the key to the small safe. At the moment when I intended to close my eyes for the last time. The phone in. The room rang unexpectedly. Why is it ringing at this hour? Surprised, I picked up the receiver. The voice on the other end was a familiar one. Hello, is this Mrs. M. Sears? Baker? I'm Mr. Thompson, Michael's former middle school teacher. For a moment, I couldn't find my voice. Why now, of all times, is this person calling? The voice on the other line continued. I apologize for the sudden call. I just needed to confirm something. Back around 2010. Did you by any chance sell a kidney to cover Michael's university entrance fees? I almost gasped. I'd never spoken of this to anyone before. How do you know that? I was going through some old letters earlier. Michael wrote about it in one of his essays. My mom supports me even by diminishing herself, he wrote. Originally, I thought it was a metaphor, but it kept bothering me. And I'm sorry if this is inappropriate. There was silence on the line for a few moments. Then, with a voice that shook slightly, I finally responded. Yes, it's true. I told no one and did it quietly, only one kidney, on March 15, 2010, at a local hospital, so I could pay Michael's enrollment fee and first year's tuition. The voice on the other end became tearful. W.E. Mrs. Baker, you are truly an incredible mother. I needed to tell someone, which is why I called. Earlier, by chance, I spoke with Michael. It seemed he had no idea about any of this. He said, I don't understand my mom's struggles. And knowing that, I just couldn't remain silent. After hanging up, I took a deep, long breath. The night I intended to fall asleep forever, to let go of life. Yet, that single phone call sparked a glimmer in my heart. Michael knew nothing, but knowing someone else knew, brought a comfort I never anticipated. I slowly tidied up the medications I'd laid out on the desk. Equally unchanged, the stationery was carefully placed back into its envelope, rather than torn. As I clutched the key to the safe tightly in my hand, I whispered softly to myself, I'm not done yet. The night I hung up the phone, I sat silently, unable to voice any words for a while. It felt as if the pills in front of me and the envelope no longer mattered. Deep within me, however, remained the faintest echo. There might be something left for me to do. A few days after being discharged from the hospital, I went alone to the small shed behind my old home. The iron door, untouched for many years, had grown rusty, and the key barely turned in the lock. But at the first soft click, it felt as though the time beyond that door began to rush back all at once. Taking a deep breath, I entered the dim shed slowly. The air inside carried the odor of dust, intertwined with the tightly packed memories of my life. There were cardboard boxes, old costume cases, and wooden chests with drawers. Each had been left with something meaningful from my past. I chose one particularly heavy box and opened it. Inside were more than 30 notebooks neatly arranged. The covers had all been meticulously labeled with years, months, and brief notes of content. April 2007, T's tuition payment record. March 2010, enrollment fees payment. Organ donation procedures. October 2013, supplement for part-time earnings. I turned the pages of each notebook. The records included gas bills, groceries, school uniforms, and transport passes, alongside handwritten notes of small numbers. Today's lunch was nori bento. He didn't say anything, but I bet he's tired of it. He mentioned his part-time money isn't enough. Quietly slipped $100 in his wallet. It might have been the daily routine of any mom you could name. Still, each line was a record of my life's labor, keeping the family going. By the time I noticed, tears had crept down my cheeks. In the darkest corner of all those memories, a half-written legal document awaited. It was a will. I, Susan Baker, intend to bequeath part of my hard-earned estate. Yet, it remained unfinished. Beside this lay a note that read, $50,000 to a local children's foster home. Even if I don't know their names or faces, I want it used for someone's sake. Tracing those words with my finger, I exhaled softly. In that moment, my eyes caught something, an old photo encased in a weathered frame. It was a picture of 15-year-old Michael, beaming on crutches. It was from the time he'd broken his leg in an incident. Below this picture was a note in my handwriting. To Michael, no matter what, Mom will always be right beside you. I let those words fade into oblivion, remembering them now as if it was brand new, creating a tightness deep within my chest. I dedicated my whole life to my son. But, at the same time, I never showed or communicated that journey to him. Somewhere along the line, believing he'll understand eventually, became my default setting. Yet perhaps the one misunderstanding was me. As I sifted through, there appeared a small piece of paper. March 15, 2010, my handwriting was written on it, kidney donation complete. As long as it means a brighter future for Michael, that's enough. This short note aligned with the memory of the phone call that night, piercing deep into my soul. The shed remained silent. But in there, I existed. Tokens of a life lived. The path walked as a mother, and the pride of having lived for someone. From this vast trove of memories, I decided to take back a few notebooks, the photograph, and the draft of the will. Then, deep in my heart, I whispered to myself, Evelyn, there are things you haven't finished yet. My hands were trembling, but the tiniest bit of warmth returned to my fingertips. The next morning, I woke up early. The singing of the birds and the rising sun seemed unusually calm and quiet that day. I left a small envelope on the desk. Inside were the key to the storage shed and a letter with only a single line. Mom is gone now. Her entire life is all inside here. After sealing it, I gently closed my eyes. Whether Jason would take the keys was uncertain. But if there ever came a day when he did open it, if he could see me as more than just a memory, and instead as reality, that alone would be enough for me. That afternoon, I organized my remaining contacts, gathered just the essentials, and set out for a new place. I was heading to the Sunshine House Children's Home. I had once visited it. It was small but filled with warmth. May I clean or do the dishes? Anything you'd like? I asked. The director looked surprised, but welcomed me all the same. That night, I heard that my son had visited the storage, a coincidence for sure. I still don't know what expression he had when he took the key or how he felt when he opened the door, but later he shared this with me. When I walked into the storage, it felt like the air suddenly went still. It was the quietest place I'd ever been. He then started to share more candidly. The first thing he saw was a mountain of notebooks and envelopes. Among the neatly stacked paperwork, one envelope stood out, placed there like it didn't belong. Inside were an old medical bill and a receipt. They stated, hospitalization and surgery fees, total approx. US 21,000 recipient, City Hospital date, March 15, 2010. And on another piece of paper, handwritten, left kidney removal, March 15, 2010. For Jason's future, he said he couldn't move from that spot. An unseen reality, never spoken of, wrapped around him in that dust-covered storage. He said something inside him broke at that moment. Then, he admitted, for the first time, I understood what it meant that Mom sacrificed her life for me. There were also notes on the storage walls, little reminders I had left behind. Don't forget the lights. Checked gas valve. Boiled eggs in the fridge. Jason realized these were my little loves, addressed solely to him. And then, there was a photograph on a shelf. Underneath the photo of 15-year-old Jason on crutches were my words, no matter when, Mom is always by your side. Jason told me he stood there, speechless, in front of that photo for quite some time, for Mom, to document everything, store it all away, and never say a word. It's mixed with regret and guilt. And yet, here I was, thinking I could make things even with a mere $350. I had no words for that. I just held his hand. There are things a person only sees after losing something. But if someone offers a hand when you're about to lose everything, perhaps life can start anew. Maybe my life was trapped in the storage all along. But when someone finally opened it, It felt like the love cramped inside had finally reached its destination. And now, I wait quietly. The day when he would visit again is one I eagerly await. The day when he would call me Mom with genuine affection is a wish I hold dear. Yet, even if he never returns, the fact that he opened that storage door is already more than enough for me. It's been exactly a month since that day. The seasons gently transition from winter to spring, and the morning air now carries a faint warmth. Currently, I spend my days volunteering at the Sunshine Home for Children, though I can't do anything extraordinary. Preparing lunch for the kids, hanging laundry, or simply reading storybooks to them gives me a sense of purpose every day. It feels like I've been granted a chance to relive those moments, my time of being a mother, all over again. And then, one day, while sweeping the front entrance of the facility, a silhouette appeared before me. When I lifted my head, I saw it was Jason standing there. He seemed a bit thinner, but his eyes appeared sharper, with perhaps a hint of vulnerability that hadn't been there before. I was so surprised I couldn't speak. Jason silently bowed his head and, kneeling there, softly spoke. "Mom, I'm sorry. I didn't hear. I pushed you away just because it suited me." His voice shook, and I heard the sound of his tears hitting the ground. When I opened the storage, it was the first time I understood how much you did for me. Gently, I approached and placed my hand on his back. Just like when he was a little boy, I gently patted his back. "Thank you for coming back." That was everything for me. It was beyond forgiveness or blame. What filled me was simply gratitude for his returning life. Since then, every weekend, Jason started coming to the facility. Initially, he was shy, hesitating with cleaning and washing dishes. But he has since warmed up to the children, showing them his cheerful smile. "Mom, after we finish cleaning this room, let's do the hallway next." "All right, could you pass me another bucket?" These exchanges became a commonplace weekend ritual. Seeing Jason hold the mop first, the image of a self-centered adult had completely vanished. One day, Jason said, "Mom, I always thought a family should be this way. But now I realize how cold that was." I nodded quietly. We cannot rewrite the past, but by carefully stacking each now, perhaps we can change tomorrow. Something my son and I are finding out together now. Now, I can articulate this. I am Evelyn Miller. Once, I was just an old woman trying to end her life. However, now, I live. I experience days where I feel needed and useful to others, living quietly and carefully, connecting each moment. That night, I made a choice. I chose to live. And it doesn't just mean to keep breathing, to live so I can share my story, to live so I can be a light for someone, and to live so I can forgive myself. Maybe someone like me might just be viewed as an elderly person or someone in need of care, regarded only as a statistic. But within each of these numbers, there's a life that was loved, lost, protected, discarded, and prayed for lived once. Please, let me tell you this. If right now your parent is just quietly smiling beside you, imagine that today might be your last day together. Not now, or can't deal with it at the moment. Before those words create an irreparable wall. Life is fragile and delicate, and understanding can often come too late. The words left unsaid and actions not taken can linger deeply in one's soul, sometimes for a lifetime. But through genuine connection and understanding, we can transform regret into something more meaningful and enduring. In every small act of love, there's hope for renewal. Take another look. Look directly at your parents. There's likely a story still unseen there. I am Evelyn Miller. Soon, I will be 70. Yet now, this moment is my new morning. And today, once again, I hold a mop with my son, quietly but surely, rewriting my life. Thank you for listening to my story.